In this short video, I'm going to show you how to use Tasker to read data that's been generated by the Torque app. I do this in my digital dash system to keep track of the estimated distance to empty so that I can get a customized alert for it. There are other things you might want to do with it as well. And the first step is to get Torque configured so that it logs the information we're interested in a way that Tasker can access. So in order to do that, we click on the gear icon in the lower left-hand corner, go to Settings, and then we scroll down and we see Data Logging and Upload. So the first step is to choose what we're actually going to keep track of, what Tasker or what Torque is going to log. So we click on that, and we see that I've already got the distance to empty estimated value in my log file because I've been using this system for quite a while. But just to show you how to add a different item, click on the three dots in the upper left-hand corner, click Add PID to Log, and then you simply scroll down through the list until you find something that you want to keep track of. We'll just say fuel rate direct from the ECU. Now, so that will also be logged again at this point. Now, because I'm not really interested in that, I'm going to remove it by long pressing and clicking Delete. So the one thing that I'm interested in is now going to be logged, the estimated distance to empty. So we go back here and scroll down through the list. I don't want synchronous logging at this point. I just want it to write data as it has it. The file logging interval, this is an important one. Torque allows you to choose how often it writes to its log file, anywhere from 1/10 of a second on up to 5 seconds. And for things that don't change very quickly, like the estimated distance to empty or the engine coolant temperature, 5 seconds works very well, and that's what I'm going to be using here. If you need something that you have to keep track of basically in real time, you're much better off using one of Torque's built-in gauges because it's going to be faster than anything that you can do in Tasker. I'm going to choose to have log when Torque is started and only when the OBD2 adapter is connected so that I don't get extraneous log files. I'm not going to log GPS. It's very important here that rotate log files be turned off. If you don't do that, every time Torque starts, it will create a new log file in its directory that will have a name based on the time and date that you started Torque. That's going to be hard for Tasker to access because we don't know the file name ahead of time. By turning off rotate log files, we ensure that Torque always uses a file named tracklog.csv, so we can enter that information into Tasker later. So we want that clicked off. I've also told it to format my log values to 2 decimal places. That's plenty for what I need. Real-time web upload, I'm not doing any of this stuff. I'm not saving anything to my web server. I am just not interested in doing that right now. Trip recording, I am automatically recording my trips so that I can look at them later. Short trips are being discarded if they're less than half a mile, and it's going to ignore the fact that I occasionally have to stop and get some gas. I do want to have this also log selected sensors clicked because that's what I just entered in the upper part of this screen, so I make sure I have that. Definitely not logging to Twitter or Facebook, so there's nothing that I need here. And that completes the setup as far as Torque is concerned. And now we can go ahead and get into Tasker and look at creating some actions and profiles that can access this data. But before we do that, let's take a look at the actual file that Torque is writing, because there's some information that we have to have in order to be able to access it with Tasker. In order to do that, I'm going to use Total Commander here, which is a file exploration program. I'm going to touch SD card there, and then I'm going to scroll down until I find the rather appropriately named folder where Torque stores its information, which is called Torque Logs, right there. So this is where Torque is going to store everything that it writes. And because we told it not to rotate its log files, it's always going to write into this one called tracklog.csv. Every 5 seconds, it's going to create a new line in this file when the system is running. So I've only got one line in there right now, but that's okay because it is everything we need. Let me just blow it up so you can see it a little bit better. And you can see that each line is going to start with a very precise system time, followed by a comma, followed by 4 entries that deal with g-forces, again all separated by commas. And then right there at the end of the line, that 52.9, that's the information we're actually interested in. That's the latest estimated distance to empty that Torque had written when the system was running. So there's 3 pieces of information right on this screen that we need. First of all, the name, tracklog.csv. We need to know that commas are being used as the separators. And we need to know that the entry that we're interested in is the 6th one on the line. So that's 3 pieces of information that we got out of Total Commander here. But there's one more that we can get and that we need. Right up here at the top, the location of the Torcolog file, /storage, /emulated, /0, /torcologs. So those 4 things, the location of the file, the name of the file, the separator, and the location of the information that we're interested in are all things that we have to have before we ever start trying to access this information. Now, in order to get at it, obviously, we're going to need a few things. First of all, certainly we're going to need Tasker to get at this. But we're also going to have this folder right here, BusyBox No Root. This is actually a collection of Unix commands that get installed on your system when you install this app. It includes the one that we're really interested in called tail, that allows you to read the last line or last few lines of a file without having to search all the way through it and find the end of the line. It goes there automatically. And we also have Terminal Emulator here. That is something that you have to install when you install BusyBox No Root. It's the interface that BusyBox is using, so you'll have to have that installed as well. And you'll be prompted to do that when you install BusyBox and try to configure it. So we've got 4 pieces of information: the location of the torque log, the name of the torque log, the separator, and the position of the information raft. But there's one more thing we have to have, and that's in BusyBox here. I've already configured it, so mine is all done. But one of the things that we get out of that is this path location right here. This is the pointer to the Unix commands, including the tail command, that we're going to have. So we're going to need this rather long path here when we start configuring actions within Tasker. So now that we've got that, we can actually go ahead, get into Tasker, and start configuring some actions. So we'll go ahead and start Tasker here. I have several projects set up, including my test project here, where I keep things that I'm just experimenting with or learning about. And I've already set up a task here called Torque Example. And the reason I've done that is because the first thing that you need to do it requires quite a bit of typing, and I didn't want to type and talk at the same time. So I've already set up the first command or the first action within this task, and that's a run shell. If you haven't used that before, you can find it in Tasker under the code category. There it is in the middle at the bottom, run shell, and that's what we've got right here. And I'm going to show you what we've entered into that now. That first line there, called command, as you can see, starts off with that rather long prefix that we got out of BusyBox, followed by the word tail, which is the command we're using, and then a -1. That -1 just tells the tail command to only read the very last line of the file. If you put a 2 in there, it would read the last 2 lines, but we only want the last 1, so we put a 1 there. And then that's followed by the path that points to the file that we're reading here, the torque log. Now, a couple of things here. Notice that use root is not checked. You don't need root for this particular process. But we did have to create something to store the output, and I've done that, created a variable called obd_log. It's a local variable, as you can see. There are no capital letters. So it's only available to this particular task, and we're going to manipulate it here within that task, so that's just fine. So that's really all we need to get that line into Tasker. And just to show you that that works, I'm going to go ahead here and add a flash alert, and I'm going to flash OBD log, make it long here, go back and run it with the button in the lower left hand corner. And there you can see that we have the information that we'd seen within Total Commander, that line that was in my torque log. Now, remember, I only had one line in there, but it doesn't matter. I could have 100 lines, and if this was the last one, it would still read that. So it's actually grabbing the last line of the file in there. And that's really what we want. So, but it's really more than we want, so we need to kind of get the piece that we're after. And in order to do that, we're going to use a variable split within Tasker. We're going to tell it to split the OBD log variable, and we're going to tell it to use a comma as the splitter. And that will break it into its component parts and give us what Tasker calls a pseudo array. And we'll just show that we've got that working here now. We'll add another flash alert. And this time we're going to use OBD log, and we want the 6th piece of information. So we just add a 6 onto the end of that. That's the way these pseudo arrays work. And when we run this one, there's our 52.9, the exact piece of information that we had wanted. So what you do with it at this point is entirely up to you. You could transfer it into a global variable for display, like I do. You could have the system react to that information, which is, again, what I'm doing. Whenever that variable falls below 60, I get a warning through the system, and I get a little display that pops up and a little voice that tells me I need to start thinking about getting gas. But whatever you want to do is entirely up to you. Now, you do need to run this particular task every time you want updated information. And there are a couple of different ways that you could do that. You could set up a profile that monitors the tracklog.csv for any changes and triggers this task whenever it sees anything. Or you could set up a loop, which is what I've done in my digital dash project. I've got sort of a master loop that runs on about a 30-second cycle. And part of it includes this shell command to read the information in from Torque. So that's really all it is. I hope that this has been useful for you, and thank you for watching.